Hello, can California go? Hi, you're listening to the Colin Flaherty podcast, the Don't Make the Black Kids Angry podcast. Here we talk about black mob violence, black on white crime, black on young, black on old, black on gay, black on straight, black on Asian, black on Amish, black on Eskimos, black on kitties, puppies, and turtles. And how so many reporters and public officials are in denial, deceit, and delusion about it. Let's get back to California. I mean, people have been asking that question for a long time. I remember having this conversation, it was in the 90s. That was a long time ago. With one of my clients, a big home builder, and we were talking about the demographic trends in California. And I was saying, listen, if you look below the headlines say, well, California's population just grew by 1 or 2 or 3% this year, or this area grew by this much. If you look beneath the headlines and you look at the numbers, what we're seeing is a massive migration away from California of white, middle-class, Republican homeowner types. And what we're seeing, they're being replaced in a demographic sense by illegal immigrants from south of the border. That's why California basically went from being, a regular old state. Sometimes it went Democrat, sometimes it went Republican. Now it's just a good old Democrat state all the time. And inside that, California, you really want to know what the dynamic of at least the government is out there. And the dynamic is California is run by the public employee unions for the benefit of the public employee unions. That means teachers, prison guards, and the people who work for all the different governments. They are very, very active and aggressive in politics. Most people, when they see something like that going on, they just don't look at that and go, well, I don't like that guy as governor, I'm moving. No, what you do, people look at it over a long period of time and you say, wow, they're not really building roads here anymore, are they? They're taking all the money they said they're going to use for roads, and they're using it for other projects. I mean, the gas taxes are supposed to be road money. They always carve a huge slice of that, put it into biking trails, put it into bike lanes, put it into buses, and then people are just having a hard time getting around in their cars. When you see these stories about California, we are going to get to something about the fellas in a minute, but let's set the stage. When you see these stories about every major paper runs this story once a year, once every 2 years in California about how people are moving out. Just saw one of those stories in San Francisco. People are going, no, we don't like the crime. The big thing in California now is the absolutely desperate level of homelessness, where people are just pulling up tents and sleeping on the side of the road. And nobody feels like they can do anything about it other than shrug their shoulders and go, we can't arrest our way out of this mess. It's a very complicated problem, Colin, with lots of nuances. So whatever the population of California is now, a lot of people just picked up stakes and gone to Nevada, or Washington, or Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Texas, even Florida, New Mexico. It's not really a good way to make friends and influence people in any of those states to show up in a lot of neighborhoods with a California license plate on your car and go, hey, people, I'm your new neighbor. But when these newspapers do these stories once every year or so, they always kind of run into somebody like me, somebody who always said, listen, when I moved here a long time ago, California was different. It was still a place where somebody could go to make their fortune. It was still a place where you could go and make something out of yourself with a little smarts, a little drive, a little ambition, a little hard work, a little willingness to get in there and make something happen for yourself. That was California. The people on their way out now, on their last thing, they say when they're driving up the Interstate 5 or out the Interstate 15 on the way out of the state is, California's not like that anymore. I mean, basically the Democrats have been running the state for a very long time, and kind of everything they touch kind of goes to hell, whether it's the roads, whether it's the crime problem, whether it's the homeless thing. The homeless thing has got people frantic out there. And you know, the word around the country among homeless people is, you know, if you want to get lots of free stuff, see if you can figure out a way to get to California. They're not going to ask you to work. They're not going to ask you to do anything. They'll just give you a check, and nobody's really going to bother you that much. Plus, you could probably get some drugs with with that check they give you. You know, in California, it's kind of reminds me a lot of that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And in the book, it says, well, men, we don't like to talk about a problem as much as we just like doing it. You know, if somebody comes up to us and says, hey, Colin, I have a flat tire. Well, I mean, what's there to discuss? It's like, okay, let's get a jack. You got a spare? Okay, I'll call AAA to get a spare or something, whatever. Let's just get it done. But in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, the guy says the lovely ladies, they take a slightly different approach to problem solving. They like to talk about it. And to talk about a problem to them is often the same as solving a problem. That's why when the guy comes in, you know, from work and he gets his 1 hour in his man cave and he comes out and the woman's sitting there at the table saying, well, this happened, that happened. In the book, they tell you, like, no, you don't have to solve any of her problems. All you have to do is listen to them. That's the same as solving them. Well, that's kind of how California is run. Everybody out there talks a good game, but when it comes right down to it, if we ask them to do something, to live up to their, whatever we expect of them, however low level, well, they're just, I mean, we just see one story after another how they're falling short. But, you know, it's funny, the major newspapers in the state, they're quite happy to look at it and as if, well, that's what we expected. They're not falling short. I mean, I'm thinking of the stuff we've done here in Sacramento, right? South Sacramento. How many stories have we done on black people targeting Asians for violence, robbery, and murder in the Sacramento area? The papers up there and the local news stations, they do a story on this every couple of months. When they started doing it a couple of years ago, you know, they started off with all the videos and somebody looked at it and said, hey, maybe that crazy guy Colin has a point. I think, you know, I'm not sure. Hey, I might be wrong on this, but I think I see on these videos all the people robbing the Asians. Well, they have a central organizing feature, and don't tell anybody this, but they're black. And the people that are targets, they have a central organizing feature as well. They're usually coming home from work or doing something very productive, and they're getting it out of their car or they're sitting at their house, and they're Asians. So this black on Asian thing is an enormous problem in Sacramento. And when they have the big meeting, stick 500 Asian people in a room. See, they all expect, they're very practical people, these homeowners, these storekeepers, very hardworking people. They put them in a room and they're all very practical people. They're expecting somebody to take the very simple measures to just, hey, if somebody's bonking us over the head, robbing and killing us, can't we just arrest them and put them in jail for a very long time? How's that work? Then we always get some goofy-looking city councilman to come up there and explain to us how we're not going to arrest our way out of this mess. And darn it, you know, it may seem like it's dangerous around here, but crime's down 87% since last year. Oh, yeah, Every 2 or 3 months, they have one of these big meetings. Fewer and fewer people go to the meetings because more and more people, the Asian people, know that the city council and the police force, the people who run the police department, they're just not geared up to do what it takes to keep their neighborhood safe, to catch the people who are terrorizing their neighborhood and to put them away for a very long time. No, they understand. A lot of people understand this now that didn't understand this a few years ago, that showing up and talking about something is more important than actually doing something. I mean, that's the California way now. thinking of an example. We did a story about, there was a burglary ring operating out of Long Beach. Black people. They did like 5,000 burglaries over a several-year period. 5,000. You know, if I had said 500, that would be a large number. You know, we hear 5,000. 5,000 is a big number when it comes to burglaries. That's a lot of empty homes. That's a lot of doors you got to knock on. And the people committing the crime were black, and many, many, many of the victims were Asian. And it took 5 years to figure that out. They finally arrested a lot of them. When they did, they said, hey, sorry we didn't catch them sooner, man. And now we go up to Oakland for what could be, I want to say this is the worst story. In a way, it is. But it's only the worst because it's the most edifying. It's only the worst because this really exemplifies what California is today. You've got your know-it-all reporter who doesn't know anything. Your know-it-all reporter who understands that being a report, the definition of journalism is writing or talking about something with complete authority on something you know nothing about. And then you got your police chief. You got to go over to minds.com/Colin Flaherty and see the video of this police chief. I think look for the word America's most dangerous city or something like that. You got to really see the body language and who she is. You get this tiny little old frail lady. Yeah, listen, I'm so far beyond caring if anybody busts me for being sexist about this, but this is in Oakland. Oakland is on everybody's list of one of the most dangerous cities in America. And crime in Oakland, as we will hear in a minute, is a black thing. So the mayor figured out, or when she got hired, this is what her spiel was. She's kind of, not the mayor, the new chief of police. When she got hired, I think about a year ago, her spiel was, listen, I figured out what's causing all the crime in Oakland. I figured out why Oakland is one of the most dangerous places in America. It's because the white racist cops are picking on black people because even though they're going to say in this video that the blacks in Oakland are about 25%. It's really about a third, at least a third, probably closer to a half in Oakland. But anyway, they're going, so let's just say they have a third of the population of Oakland is black and 70% of the people who get arrested are black. Problem? Yes, people are picking on black people. This is Oakland, California. That's known as a chocolate city. Now, the percentage of black people in Oakland is going down. People in San Francisco is getting so insanely expensive. It is spilling into Oakland. Just like the Atlantic magazine said the other day, when white people move into a neighborhood, they do like to, they will pick up a phone and call somebody if they see somebody bonking somebody over the head, or if they see somebody with a crowbar sneaking in the window of their next door neighbor's house. Thus, white people moving into a black neighborhood causes crime. Let's give this lady a listen to, because it's all talk. It's like, nothing's going to happen because of what she does. She can manipulate and twist the numbers any way she feels like. But nothing is going to happen because to her, talking is the same as doing.
2016, a study by Stanford researchers found Oakland police were stopping far more African Americans than whites in traffic and pedestrian stops. Just over a year ago, or almost a year ago really, Oakland Police Chief Ann Kirkpatrick took over the head of the OPD. In her first days, she promised to reduce racial profiling by officers and shift to a precision-based policing model. New data released just this week from Stanford finds the racial disparity appears to be narrowing. The number of traffic stops involving African Americans in Oakland has dropped 18%. For more this morning, happy to be joined by Oakland Police Chief Ann Kirkpatrick. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Of course, let's talk about this 18% drop in the stops of African Americans in Oakland. You say it's because of precision-based policing.
Correct.
Define that for us.
Well, precision-based policing is a strategy and a different way of policing than we used to do. So in precision-based policing, we are telling our officers we do know that 80% of our crime is done by 20% of the population. So we know basically who this 20% is. So instead of looking at everybody, we look only at the precise people who are engaged in criminal behavior.
How do you know who those people are?
Usually it's from repeated behavior. So then we know, and we are focused, as you know, on reducing gun violence in our city, and so it is repeated behavior that gives us an indication of who is engaged in the behavior.
Are you focusing on individuals, on neighborhoods? How targeted can you be?
No, we mainly individuals in behavior. So it's very important that our focus not be on a person's gender, their race, but a behavior. And so it is behavior that we are focused on, and we do, as I said, can tell you that based on history, we know who is engaging in criminal behavior. And so we're trying to intervene versus just arrest as well. But we're stopping a lot fewer people than we ever have before. We want to restore relationships. And we know, particularly our African American community has been wounded. And so we just gave a different mission. And our numbers are proving the fruit of what we said we were going to do. And so we're very proud of that. We have a new story to tell about the Oakland Police Department. We think we are an agency that is the best in this country. But we want to restore where we have caused harm and hurt.
These numbers reflect your department's work in the past 6 months.
Right.
Many people grew up generations in Oakland. How long do you think it will take to really ease that feeling of the police are not on my side?
We're seeing it already. I think we as Americans, and Oaklanders particularly, this is the most kind, embracing community. I'm an outsider, and everyone has been so welcoming. I think in our human nature, we desire to get back to harmony. I think we desire that we forgive. And we have to prove, though, that we earn that restored relationship. And we're seeing it just by how the community responds to us. Looking at our barbershop forum. That is fruit of restoring relationships on both sides.
Do you think that there is a national awakening, not just here in Oakland, that's leading to these discussions about, I'll tell you, I had a child ask me, why are so many black people arrested, in his words?
Right, right.
A lot of little ones are struggling with that.
And so we're showing proof through the Stanford study that we are actually not even contacting as many people, particularly our African American.
But you're still making the same number of arrests. We
are. And we are able to, though, make more quality type decisions of arrest. My desire, and I think in all earnestness, Oakland is leading the nation on this. We are transforming, and Oakland is restoring relationships, and where we haven't, we're going to continue to go back to that table. But arresting everybody is not that answer. We would rather see intervention before arresting.
Would you agree you still have work to do? African Americans represent 2/3 of the arrests made by OPD, but they're only about 1/4 of the population here in Oakland.
Correct. Oh, we have work to do. And all relationships, you must continually invest in relationships over a lifetime. And so I believe and know we can get into a restored relationship where the community is proud of us. I'm proud of Oakland Police Department. We have a new story to tell about us, but I think we're showing proof of that, even in the numbers.
Okay, as you come up on your one-year mark here as the head of OPD, Chief Kirkpatrick, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, a young person wants to know why we arrest so many black people. Then she looks at the chief of police. The chief says, oh, that's bad. That's really bad. Oh, we're making progress on that. How about this? How about this startling suggestion? How about black people commit more crime than white people? I mean, good Lord, when I think of the Bay Area, I actually put Sacramento in there. I cast kind of a wide net around the Bay Area. So you got the Bay, you got all this bad business happening in Sacramento. You got all this bad business happening in Oakland. Now we got the chief going, and lots of other cities around that area, Richmond. Crime in that area is a black thing, chief. And you're going to go out, you can tell all your officers to stop arresting black people, stop stopping them, and your numbers can go down. But that's not really going to affect people when they decide if they want to live in Oakland, stay in Oakland, open a business in Oakland, have a family in Oakland. Everybody's going to know what the game is. They're going to know what the schools are like. They're going to know they're going to know exactly what the no-go zones are. They're going to know if they can ride the BART light rail system into work or not. You know, we did a story on BART a few months ago, which to me, BART is Bay Area Rapid Transit, and there was a series. These are the only ones we heard about. Over a few month period, there was half a dozen or so large scale episodes of black mob violence on the BART train. People were coming in, beating people, robbing people. And then they went to, a reporter went to BART and said, "Hey, you guys have a lot of cameras on those trains. Can we see the video?" They said two things. One, by the way, like half of those cameras are dummy cameras, so they don't work. And two, you're going to hear that in the video coming up. The vice president of BART sent a memo out to the BART board of directors, including a local elected official you're going to hear in a minute. And she said, "We're not going to release the video because that would not be fair to people of color, parentheses, black people." I mean, here we got the chief of police in Oakland saying that cops are causing crime in Oakland. And that's why we have to have cops arrest fewer black people. It doesn't have anything to do with black dysfunction, black misbehavior, black people committing more crimes. Nothing to do with that, because that's a fiction. That the only person in America who doesn't believe that is that crazy guy Colin Flaherty. And we got the people in BART saying the exact same thing. So this is a video we did. The beginning is a little bit longer than I like it to be, but stick with it because there's some really good BART and black criminality stories in this video that are just hard to believe. We're going to talk about the thing we just mentioned about the train, about the BART, about them not wanting to hurt the feelings of black people by showing us the videos. And then we're going to remind people of what happened a little while ago when BART came up with the idea of, oh yeah, crime's a bad thing, so let's give everybody an app so they can report the crime. Let's see what happens with these two stories. I feel as if we just found the Rosetta Stone, an admission from a high-ranking public official that the only reason they're not releasing the videotapes of several episodes of large-scale black mob violence is because they don't want to reinforce negative racial stereotypes and make the minorities feel bad. Wow. Hey, this is Colin Flaherty. I'm the author of Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. We're not new to this channel. We're coming back to this channel for the same reason we had to leave this channel, which is YouTube decided they wanted to play some games with us on the other channel, so we're back here for at least for a couple weeks. But how many videos have we seen where, when the fellas are out there doing some really bad business, beating up an old lady, shooting an old lady, 100,000 or 1,000 black people rampaging down a sidewalk or a shopping center? How many have left little notes saying, "We're doing this because we don't like white people"? Or how many are doing "down with hunky"? Doesn't happen that often. Somebody was actually chiding me the other day saying, "Colin, you got to start calling this crap for what it is. You got to start calling it a hate crime." No, that's exactly what we do not want to do. Because, the hate crime is a very specific legal thing, right? I have no interest in that very specific legal definition of a hate crime. It requires somebody to sprinkle a few words over some deed that makes it a hate crime. But if we start calling it a hate crime, we are going to massively understate the amount of racial, black on white crime, black on young, black on old, black on gay, black on straight, black on Asian, black on everybody crime. So we don't want anything to do with that term hate crime because it really understates what's going on. But how, and So we establish a pattern with the fellas of violence, all different kinds. Look at our playlist: schools, churches, chicken shops, dozens and dozens on Asians. But what about the deniers? What about the Republic officials and reporters and other people? I mean, we very rarely catch them in the act of admitting it. I mean, we catch them all the time saying it's one thing, like, my favorite, I just saw it again today out in Chicago. The lady, we just caught her doing this 2 weeks ago. She was on to something, and a bunch of black people are robbing people in an upcoming neighborhood of Chicago. It's a black woman, a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. So she looks in the camera knowing full well that the people involved are black. So she looks in the camera and says, all we have is a vague description.
Now, police say they do have very vague descriptions of those individuals responsible for these robberies. They say very vague, very vague, very vague, very vague.
Which matches up nicely with the aims of her club. They're doing a big thing now to improve the image of the black male in America. They're not trying to improve the behavior, just the image. Anyway, so let's go out to BART. Let's go out to the San Francisco Bay Area. Huge area, by the way. Never been out there, if you've never ridden BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. So a month or two ago, 60 to 100 black people rampaged through a BART train, beat the crap out of a bunch of passengers. Happened last night, where a bunch of the fellas, BART gets off for not reporting this. A bunch of the fellas followed a white guy off the train at Berkeley, at the Berkeley stop. And he walked about a block away, and they beat the hell out of him. So BART doesn't have to take any responsibility for that.
There's been another BART passenger robbed by a group of teenagers, and this is the latest in a series of these types of crimes involving the transit system.
Yeah, disturbing indeed. However, as Kront 4's Zeke Bidyoun reports tonight, in this recent case, the teenage suspects did one thing differently from those other robberies.
You are riding BART, arrive at your stop safely, exit the train station. However, you're being followed by 4 teenagers intending to rob you.
Okay, wow, that's really scary.
It happened last Friday just before 10 p.m. near Springer Gate on the UC Berkeley campus. That is where UC Berkeley police say the 26-year-old male BART passenger was beaten, kicked, and robbed by 4 teenagers. BART recently installed 2,000 video cameras in all of its 669 cars. And BART officials say last week some of those new cameras played a key role in identifying several teenage suspects allegedly involved in a robbery at an Oakland station.
But we are pleased that we have these new tools, these new cameras that are going to be a boon to investigators in the Berkeley Police Department in finding out possibly where these teens came from, where they went.
This is the transit agency's 4th recent incident involving teenagers allegedly robbing a passenger. But it is the first time that the robbers waited until the victim was not in the view of the new cameras and off BART property.
We don't track what happens to passengers after they're out of the BART system.
But BART has videos. I mean, they're trained for a long time. Their trains were like, well, we don't have that many videos. Don't tell anybody, but most of our cameras don't work. Well, they changed that. Now all the cameras work. And there's a lot of cameras in each car. So when those 60 black people rampaged through there, everybody said, oh man, I can't wait to see those videos. They never released them. And they gave they're always changing the story about why they don't release them. We'll see that in a minute. But all of a sudden, then this board member from BART, from Contra Costa, a city in the Bay Area, she was on TV, and the reporter kept asking her, well, why don't you release these videos? I mean, why don't you release them? She said, because the people at BART said we don't want to reinforce negative racial stereotypes and a lot of other stuff like that. Wait till you see her say it. Then wait till you see the memo that the super genius, Wile E. Coyote super genius sent to her, putting down on paper what we talk about mostly in patterns. That they're lying their asses off about the level of black violence in this country.
Now, as you go about riding BART and speaking with BART riders who want to tell you their concerns, what are they saying about safety on BART these days?
I think people are genuinely concerned They are fearful about the stories that have come out about the recent attacks, the assaults, the thefts. They're concerned.
Yeah, we've got the April 22nd assault. That was the 40 to 60 teenagers. We've got the June 28th, 4 teenagers. And then June 30th, 10 to 13, yes. Teenagers, all iPhone, cell phone robberies. And you're saying people are nervous. Are they happy, or are they satisfied with the kind of information that BART is disclosing about these actions?
I've received a number of requests and comments from riders to ask me to press for the release of the video of these incidents, and the reason for that is they want to see for themselves what's going on the trains, and they want to learn from that and determine how they can protect themselves a little better and be less vulnerable to those types of crimes on the trains.
Now, we've heard that BART has said that it's because there are minors involved, and that's why they're not able to release the videos. Is that your understanding?
Right. Originally, the April attack, the BART did say that because they were minors involved, and involved in addition to that, the investigation, when something is under investigation, they are not required to release the video. Mm-hmm. But I've since learned that in that April attack, there was a 19-year-old who was arrested and detained, who is not a minor. And so there would be reason for at least the video of that person to be released.
Yeah, and you would think maybe they could blur the faces of other folks. So if it's not because they're minors, because we know at least one of them isn't, what is it?
Well, so I asked that question recently, asked why can't we release these videos? And the answer was initially that, well, normally cities don't release videos of these types of crimes. And I said, yes, but this is BART. People are sort of trapped in this train for a while, right. and they have a right to see what could potentially happen. And the next answer was that to release these videos would create a high level of racially insensitive commentary toward the district. And in addition, it would create a racial bias in the riders against minorities on the trains.
So they were saying that, and I assume the implication is that these crimes, or at least some of them, have been conducted by minorities, and so they don't want to release the footage because then that would somehow cause
a racial bias.
A racial bias?
Right.
Did they say... So if it were a video showing white teenagers robbing someone, we would have the video by now? Is that the implication?
That is not a question I asked, but that might be a good question.
Much to her credit, this board member released a back-and-forth email and memo she had with this woman who's the head of PR and one of the VPs of the BART system. So they were saying, hey, what's up with the crime? And, how do we report it? And when are we going to release the videos? So the memo was blah, 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 blah. Furthermore, disproportionate elevations of crimes on transit interfaces with local media in such a way to unfairly affect and characterize riders of color, leading to sweeping generalizations in media reports and a high level of racially insensitive comment directed toward the district through our social media channels, email, and call centers. The BART Police Department has a hard copy, blah, blah, blah. So, it's like, hey, we'll give them, they want to track this crap down. They can have it. We're not going to give it to them because that would not be very sensitive. So the board member, Deborah Allen, says to Carrie Hamill, could you explain what this part of your memo means? Quote, furthermore, disproportionate elevation of crimes on transit interfaces with local media unfairly affect and characterizes riders of color. I don't understand what the role of the color of one's skin plays in this issue. Can you explain? This was like the biggest softball this Carrie Hamill chick ever received in her life. The social media reaction to the original Coliseum incident in April, that's where the 60 black people rampaged through the train, was startling in the level of racial profiling that it prompted. The general manager got a call about the incident on her voicemail that used racist and incendiary language that made my mouth drop. This chick lives in Oakland, by the way. She was a candidate for city council in Oakland. Anyway, back to her memo. Many posts use patently offensive language that often involves racial slurs. Parentheses. No news articles ever reference the race of the offenders, yet some members of the public leapt to their own conclusions, on parentheses. Let's talk about that for a minute, because, so there's 60 people. We know there's 60 black people who know who did it. We know there was people on the train who know who did it. We know there were lots of witnesses that saw people going on and off the train. They know who did it. So that's already like 100 people. Then we know all the people in BART. They know who did it. The cops know who did it. It wasn't very hard to find out. I had 2 people send me emails saying, I'm a cop, or I was a passenger, I saw this happen. So to say that people are leaping to conclusions by correctly identifying black people as the culprits, nobody was guessing. People were saying what happened. Back to the memo. Some telephone calls and posts even involved vague threats. The media has proven its tendency to highlight material in the most inflammatory way possible. As a former journalist, I can cite for you a number of bias studies that have pointed out media bias and the damaging consequences of it. The firestorm of criticism in the wake of the Oscar Grant killing centered around a belief that BART police were racially biased. If we were to regularly feed the news media videos of crimes on our system that involve minority suspects, particularly when they are minors, we would certainly face questions as to why we were sensationalizing relatively minor crimes and perpetuating false stereotypes in the process. Here's my comment. It's like, crime happens to somebody else, it's minor. Happens to me, it's major. I have worked in or with the media since the 1980s. My view is that the media's real interest in the videos of youth phone snatching incidents notice how she marginalizes it, isn't the desire for transparency, but the pursuit of ratings. They know that videos of these events will drive clicks to their websites and viewers to their programs because people are motivated by fear. People can be fully informed about crimes that occur on our system without being shown images that will inflame some members of the public and paint the transit agency in a poor and ultimately misleading light. That's the most astonishing confession. That's the most astonishing admission of denial, deceit, delusion. That's the most astonishing example of how reporters and public officials ignore, deny, condone, excuse, encourage, and even lie about the level and the quantity and the quality of black violence all throughout the country. Exhibit A. Carrie Hamill, thank you. Isn't it kind of interesting when the guy in his memo, his confession, isn't it kind of interesting that he tries to present himself as some kind of, have the chin up and the moral superior stance. Oh, I heard the phone message. Oh yeah, it was enough to make my ears curl. Reporters don't care about this. All they want is ratings. So we are justified in not telling the truth about what's happening on our BART trains. Not only are they not telling the truth by withholding information, what's up when they're saying, oh yeah, it's minorities, plural, doing it? Are there Asians rampaging through BART, beating the hell out of people? It's not even an Hispanic thing up there. It's a black thing. You remember the story we did on the app at BART? This was last year. BART, another genius at BART figured it out. Hey, let's have an app. So because we always have a lot of crime on BART. This is one of these things that, like, once the dam fills up, it starts spilling over. Everybody has their story now about crime on BART. It's always the same story.
I got on here. There was a bunch of fellas going home to Oakland. They robbed people, they beat people, they assaulted people, they harassed people, and worse. Oh, anyway, back to the app thing. So they did the app, and a lot of the riders had the app, and the app was you're supposed to report suspicious activity. See something, say something, right? No, it's see something, say something, asterisk, unless it's a black person, because a local newspaper up there went through all the records of all the reports. 80% of the people being reported for criminal behavior and other kind of behavior, disruptive behavior, 80% were black. 80%. That, of course, was proof positive to this paper that this app was racist, because everybody knows black people and white people act the exact same amount. And blacks are only like 10% of the ridership of BART. How could they be 80% of the complaints? How? And now we get a clown trying to mix the blacks up with the Hispanics and the Asians, who are, more often than not, are using the BART to go to work, not to go to another place for more argy-bargy and soft targets. And this guy decides he is going to unilaterally, man, I could talk about this all night. He's going to unilaterally just not tell us. Unilaterally, he's going to make this public information private. That's how they roll in California. I lived up there quite a bit. I lived out there quite a long time. I've been up in that area a lot too. And it didn't occur to this clown even once that they have a problem with black criminality on the BART train, and perhaps his allegiance should be to the riders, not to the people who are trying to destroy his system. What level of mental illness is this? Michael Savage says liberalism is a mental disorder, disease. Where is this guy? This guy's like this far away from major horse tranquilizers. This guy's insane.
There's a story in the paper today, just out of San Francisco, the San Francisco Chronicle Examiner, sfgate.com. Anyway, this story talks about BART and everybody at the BART board of directors. Now, this is 6 months after this whole brouhaha we just heard about the cameras. Now people are going, they're having public meetings. They're talking to their elected representatives who sit on the BART board. They're saying, we can't use BART anymore. BART ridership's down 5%. A lot of people think that might be just fare jumping. People have stopped paying the fare because like in New York City just did, in Oakland and on BART, the attitude is we do not want to criminalize black people for jumping over the fare, the turnstile, and getting a free ride on BART. No, if we wrote them a ticket, that would criminalize them. That's exactly what they're doing in New York City now. So they're doing the same thing in BART. Ridership's down. But one thing about BART stations is, BART stations now are just like homeless shelters. You go into a BART station, people are disposing of all of their different sorts of body waste in a very direct fashion, if you know what I mean, and the place stinks. There's people riding on the BART as some kind of, moving hotel room. It's a mess. If you look at BART, if you look at the setup up there, when they built it, they didn't dream that homeless people would be taking, using these stations as restrooms. They didn't dream that people would just be ignoring the fare and hopping the turnstile and going in willy-nilly. They didn't dream that the board of directors today would be dumb enough to think that would be a good way to collect the fares to keep the system alive. Now it's kind of collapsing, like lots of other things in California have collapsed, whether they know it or not. Collapsing due to its own incompetence. It's collapsing due to their inability to look at crime in the eye, look at the fellas in the eye and say, hey, we see what you're doing. You're using the BART trains to go from Richmond and Oakland, where you live, to other cities in the Bay Area. You're getting out, you're attacking people, you're doing all sorts of bad business, and when you come back, you just repeat the thing in reverse. There's lots of that going on up there at BART. These aren't one-off things. These are things that the state legislature is down with. The people who run the Senate, the people who run their assembly, the governor's office. They're all down with every possible cause you could find if somebody at the tail end of the cause is going, white racism caused me to do this. That's a get-out-of-jail-free card, no matter who you are in California. They use it in BART. They use it at the city of Oakland. They use it in Sacramento. They use it in LA. They use it in lots of points in between. And when you talk to the people who use it, when you talk to the people who are in charge of making the trains run on time, of putting people, of catching criminals and putting them away for a time, but the people who are just failing on epic levels, they're all very proud of themselves. They think they're doing a great job. And for the people who are moving out of the state, well, it's kind of like Oprah said, you know, if we're ever going to fight this racism, old people just have to die. The California version is, well, if we're ever going to make California the progressive Valhalla, the progressive utopia, old white people just have to leave the state. Which they're doing in droves every day. Because basically that's a better alternative than sticking around Oakland or Sacramento or the BART system and telling people what's up, telling them about the crime and the filth and the incredible epic failure these public officials are having running even the most rudimentary public service without screwing it up. Leaving is preferable to talking about that and making the black kids angry.